Have you ever wondered if your words might be your own worst enemy? What if the more you speak, the more power you actually lose? And what if staying silent could be the most courageous decision you ever make? The truth is, the more you talk, the smaller you quietly become. And the scariest part, you usually don't even notice. As you vent your frustrations, air your sorrows, and spill your weaknesses to anyone who'll listen, your mind is silently listening too. It's not just hearing the words, it's memorizing them, storing them, and building your reality around them. Every time you express pain without purpose, you carve those wounds deeper. Your brain is taking notes, assuming that what you're saying must be true. The more you speak your struggles aloud, the more you anchor yourself in them. And without realizing it, you're building the exact life you say you want to leave behind. That's why silence in many moments is not suppression, it's strategy. This isn't about bottling up your emotions or pretending nothing hurts. It's about learning not to give your power away so easily in every single conversation. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is say nothing at all. Today, I want to challenge a habit that's holding many of us back: the urge to talk nonstop, make excuses, or stay trapped in the victim mindset. This habit is doing more damage than you think. And it ends now. I'm going to walk you through 13 Stoic lesson shard truths passed down from the wisest minds of the ancient world to help you learn the art of silence. These aren't just cute quotes for your Instagram story. These are practices that will help you break free from speaking through your wounds and start living from your strength. As the Stoics said, "He who masters his words masters his destiny." And if you take these lessons seriously, you'll stop using your voice to bleed and start using your presence to lead. But first, let me introduce you to Isabel. Her story isn't some perfect comeback narrative. In fact, it starts with frustration, exhaustion, and a whole lot of noise. At 34, Isabel had a remarkable talent, talking about absolutely everything that happened to her. From her fights with her partner to what she bought at the grocery store to her mental breakdowns, nothing was too small or too personal to broadcast. Whenever she got hurt, she opened up about it instantly. Venting made her feel like she was fixing things. And in the beginning, it seemed to work. Her friends paid attention. Her social media was buzzing with posts like, "I just can't anymore," or "Everything happens for a reason." People responded with hearts, flame emojis, comments filled with love. Isabel felt seen, felt validated. She believed she was healing by sharing, but she wasn't. She was stuck, really stuck. One day, her best friend Clara hit her with a truth that hurt more than any breakup ever could. "Issa," she said, "I don't mean to be harsh, but it honestly seems like you enjoy suffering. You talk about your problems so much, I'm starting to think you don't want to solve them. You just want to live in them." And just like that, silence. Isabel didn't respond. But that night, lying in her bed with the lights off and her phone in airplane mode, a phrase came back to her, something she'd read years ago but never really understood until now. The more you talk about a wound, the harder it is to heal. Something clicked. In the days that followed, Isabel went quiet. She stopped posting online. She stopped being the first one to reply in group chats. Her friends noticed the shift, wondering if something was wrong. But for once, everything was finally right. She was feeling things without needing to explain them. She was processing without performing. And that was the beginning of her transformation. The truth is, real growth doesn't always come with noise. Sometimes it starts the moment you stop speaking and start listening to yourself. After embracing silence, Isabel wasn't just escaping noises, she was stepping into clarity. She was finally living her pain without narrating it, and that's when something unexpected occurred. A friend recommended a book by Marcus Aurelius. She had never read philosophy before, but there was something captivating about the simplicity of that plain cover. Curiosity tugged at her, and she opened the book, only to find herself underlining sentence after sentence as if they had been written specifically for her. Speak little and only when necessary. Choose not to be harmed, and you won't be. What you hear, what you see, what you say, it all shapes you. These weren't just words on a page, they were mirrors. She saw her life reflected back at her. She realized her constant talking wasn't helping her process anything. It was reinforcing her pain, strengthening a story she should have long outgrown. No one was forcing her to replay her struggles. She had been the one, day after day, feeding her own suffering through words. She wasn't healing, she was rehearsing. So she made a new choice, one that felt radical. She chose quiet, but not the kind of silence that feels like repression. This was an intentional, powerful, quiet. When she felt the urge to vent, she paused. She took a breath and asked herself, do I need help right now, or am I just craving validation? That question was uncomfortable. It stripped her excuses. And slowly, that discomfort gave way to liberation. Something else began shifting to her conversations. She no longer filled every moment with noise. Her words became fewer, but each one carried weight. She didn't need to speak everything she felt, and that made her presence more powerful. People began to really listen because when she spoke, it mattered. Ironically, her problems didn't vanish. They still existed, but they were no longer her entire identity. She stopped narrating her chaos. She started acting from her center. And if you ask what truly transformed her life, it wasn't only the silence, it was what that silence uncovered. In the stillness, she found herself. She stopped telling a story she no longer wanted to live inside. That, my friend, is Stoicism. Even if no one calls it that, she was practicing it. Isabel learned that transformation doesn't require a loud declaration. Sometimes it begins in the quiet. When you stop repeating what breaks you, you begin building what restores you. And that's exactly what you're about to do. Today, you begin operating from strength, not from wounds. So let's take that step together. If this message is resonating, consider subscribing and becoming an exclusive member to access deeper insights. And tell us in the comments there, you ready to stop telling everyone your story and start writing a better one? Or just type, I am a Stoic. Let that be your quiet commitment. From this day on, speak less from pain and more from purpose. Because every time you say, I'm broken, or I'll never make it, the world doesn't just hear you, it believes you. You're training others how to see you. Your words act like an amplifier for your identity. And the more often you repeat them, the more you transform those words into reality, not because they were ever true, but because you kept breathing life into them. After embracing the power of stillness, Isabel began transforming quietly from within, and it all started with her words. Now let's look at what happens when the words we choose begin to shape how the world sees us. Imagine you're meeting someone new over drinks. You're barely 5 minutes into light conversation, and they've already told you 3 times how hopeless they are in relationships, how terrible they are at making decisions, and how they never finish what they start. Even if they're laughing while saying it, something inside you tightens. Without even realizing it, your brain begins to buy into their story. And almost automatically, you start viewing them through that lens. Now flip that around. That's exactly what you do to yourself every time you speak that way. You're not just telling the world who you are, you're training it to treat you the way you describe yourself. But here's the real twist. You're also teaching yourself to treat you worse than you deserve. Let's get this straight. Your words don't merely reflect your reality. They build it. They're not just descriptions, they're decisions. Every time you make a self-deprecating remark, you're laying another brick in the mental prison you'll later feel stuck inside. The Stoics grasped this over 2,000 years ago. To them, language wasn't decoration, it was discipline, it was power. Epictetus once put it with striking clarity. If people speak badly of you and it's true, correct yourself. If it's false, laugh. But that leads to a deeper question. What if you're the one speaking badly about yourself? That's the part we often ignore. The Stoics knew that choosing your words, especially the ones about yourself, is one of the most powerful tools for shaping who you're becoming. They didn't believe in talking excessively, but when they did speak, it was deliberate, focused, and clear. Silence was their practice. But when they broke that silence, their words weren't filled with pity, they were filled with purpose. They never used their voice to reinforce weakness. They used it to remind themselves of the path ahead, because they understood that the one who controls his speech eventually gains control over his mind. And here's where ancient wisdom meets modern science. Psychologist Mark Leary once wrote, "Self-compassion can be an antidote to the cruelty we sometimes inflict on ourselves." And that cruelty, it usually starts with language. You don't need haters if you've already become your own. And believe it or not, people can feel it. A Stanford University study found that individuals who consistently use positive self-descriptions have higher levels of resilience, mental clarity, and motivation. Not because they're more talented, but because they've trained their minds through the words they use. That is a serious advantage. Think of your self-talk as the rudder of a ship. It might look small, but it decides the direction of everything. If you're constantly saying you're broken, lost, or not good enough, don't be surprised if you keep sailing in circles. But change the rudder, change the script, and you shift your entire course. So how do you begin? First, reframe the sentence. When you catch yourself saying something negative, pause and pivot. Don't say, "I'm a mess." Say, "I've made mistakes, but I'm learning." That sentence doesn't weaken you, it empowers you. Second, stop hiding behind humor. Joking about your flaws might make people laugh, but it also teaches them and you that those flaws are your truth. You're not here to become a walking punchline. You're here to become unshakable. After realizing how much your inner voice shapes your identity, the next lesson is about refusing to reinforce the outdated versions of yourself others still cling to and embracing the silent power of personal evolution without applause. When someone tries to define you by who you used to be, you don't need to accept that label. If someone says, "You've always been like this," whether it's your indecisiveness or your past failures, you have every right to push back out loud or quietly to yourself. Say it clearly. "That was then. I'm in a different place now." Those words matter. Let them echo not just for others, but for your own mind to register the shift. This isn't just about speaking nicely, it's about speaking consciously, intentionally, and with the awareness that words either lock you in the past or pull you toward your future. If you don't take control of your story, you risk getting trapped in a role you've long outgrown. And deep down, you know that's not the lead character you want to be. Now here's the second thing. Your transformation doesn't need an audience. Somewhere along the way, we started believing that every moment of growth had to be documented, that if no one sees it, it doesn't count. But the truth is, not everything in your life needs to be shared. You don't have to post a selfie every time you go to the gym or share a video of yourself smiling after a tough day just to prove you're okay. And honestly, why has even walking out of the dentist become content? In this world obsessed with public validation, we've forgotten that some of the most powerful changes are the quiet ones. Not everyone deserves access to your evolution. And more importantly, not every change requires witnesses. When you talk too much about what you're doing, you risk turning your growth into a performance. It becomes something to impress others rather than something you genuinely embody. That's where people get stuck. They talk about what they're planning. They post their intentions. They say they're working on themselves. But behind the scenes, there's no real movement, no grit, no follow through. Imagine this instead. You're making real changes. You're getting up earlier. You're working out. You're improving your eating habits. But you don't say a word about it. You don't broadcast it. You don't mention it at dinner. You just do it. And then one day, someone who knows you says, "Hey, you look different. Are you doing something?" That right there, that's a different kind of validation. Not the kind you begged for. Not the kind you curated. It's the kind that simply radiates because it's real. That's when it hits you. Real change doesn't need a spotlight. It doesn't need a megaphone. It speaks for itself in how you carry yourself, how you make decisions, how you show up. Silence doesn't dilute change. It amplifies it. The Stoics lived by this. Epictetus captured it in one line that could easily be etched into your mindset forever. Don't explain your philosophy, embody it. Don't feel the need to prove your growth to anyone, just live it. Let it be seen in your discipline, in your calm, in your refusal to be rattled by the noise of other people's opinions. Real transformation doesn't come with fireworks or applause. It comes from steady commitment. It comes from doing the work day in and day out, especially when no one's watching. That's the stuff that sticks. That's the work that changes you. When you no longer need praise for every improvement or permission to evolve, you become unstoppable. You begin living from your center, not your ego. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. And if anyone today embodies that wisdom, it's Jose Pepe Mujica. After spending years behind bars, he didn't re-enter the world demanding attention. He simply lived the truth he'd discovered, and the world couldn't help but notice. After learning how silence becomes a form of self-respect, this next truth reminds you that true transformation never needs a megaphonite, only needs integrity. When Jose Pepe Mujica walked out of prison after enduring years of isolation and the harshest conditions imaginable, he didn't scream, rant, or demand vengeance. Instead, he chose peace. No hatred, no desire for revenge, no declarations of change. He simply lived in alignment with his values. His life became his message. He rejected status, refused luxuries, stayed in his modest farmhouse, drove his old beaten-up car, and donated the majority of his salary. Not because he wanted applause, but because it felt right. His actions spoke louder than any press conference ever could. So what can you learn from that? You don't need to explain what you're healing to make it real. You don't need to update the world about every tiny step forward, every slip up, or every personal milestone. The quieter your journey, the stronger it becomes. Silence filters out the distractions, leaving only the action behind. And yes, that can feel uncomfortable. We crave recognition. We want to be seen. We want others to witness our progress. But here's the catch. Sometimes the more you talk about what you're building, the more energy you're leaking. Every word becomes a small withdrawal from the momentum you need to keep going. So how do you apply this principle? Start with protection. Guard your early dreams and fragile goals like seedlings. Don't expose them to every wind that blows. That new habit you're trying to grow, that long-term goal you've quietly decided to pursue, shield them. Not because you're ashamed or scared, but because they matter. Because silence can be the highest form of respect for the life you're building. And before you share anything, ask yourself, why am I sharing this? Is it genuine excitement from within? Or am I hoping someone will validate it for me? There's a massive difference. Saying, I'm happy with what I'm doing because you truly are, that's power. But listing every detail just to hear, you're doing great, that's insecurity in disguise. Your peace doesn't need permission, and your growth doesn't need praise. Get comfortable with moving forward quietly, with working in the background, with not narrating every inch of progress, because all the time you spend explaining yourself, that's energy that could be fueling your next step. And when you choose to build in silence, what you create has deeper roots. It doesn't just grow fast, it grows strong. And here's the beauty of it. People won't need to be told what you're doing. They'll see it, and you won't need them to see it for you to keep going. That's what separates real change from performance. It's not loud, it's not curated, it's grounded, far from the noise, close to your core. Now let's take it one step further. Stop explaining, let your actions speak. Anyone can talk. Anyone can make promises. They'll tell you how this is the year they'll change, how they're about to launch their business, how they're finally quitting that bad habit. But when it's time to move, they're still stuck. Because it's easy to say, I'm changing. But doing it, that's the part where most people fold. You've met them. The ones who say they're getting up at 6 a.m. daily now, that they're quitting social media, that they're about to start their $1 million project. Sounds impressive, right? But then the alarm accidentally doesn't ring. They're still scrolling Instagram till midnight. And that dream business? Oh, the market wasn't ready. Just excuses. Just noise. Just empty sound. Meanwhile, the ones who stay silent, they're out there doing the work. Quietly, consistently, unapologetically. And those are the ones you never see coming until everything around them has changed. While others are still talking about their plans, the ones who truly grow are the ones building quietly, letting their actions speak louder than any promise. After a while, grand declarations start to lose their charm. What begins as ambition slowly becomes background noise when it's never followed by movement. You've seen it, you've probably felt it. People say they'll change, that they'll start, that they're doing something big, but time passes and nothing happens. Eventually, their words lose all weight. Intention without action is just noise. And deep down, you know that's worthless. What truly creates impact? Quiet consistency. It's that person who doesn't talk much, but you start to notice something different. They're not the same. Their choices shift. Their presence sharpens. You can feel the change before they ever say a word. That's not an accident. That's inner work being done in silence. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor philosopher, captured this perfectly. Do every act of your life as if it were your last. He didn't say talk about it, he said do it. And that's a timeless reminder. We're not here to impress with speeches, we're here to shape our lives through action. The Stoics had zero patience for empty words. To them, speaking without acting was a subtle form of lying to yourself. Epictetus said it bluntly, "It is not words that make a man great, but actions. Because speech without action is like smoke visible for a moment, then gone." A true Stoic isn't chasing appearances, he's chasing depth. Don't get it confused. This isn't about silence out of fear. It's about protecting your power. It's about not wasting your breath on dreams you haven't lived yet. It's about treating your plans like seeds meant for soil, not microphones. And if you need an example, look no further than Greta Garbo. At the height of her fame, she was adored by millions. Fan letters poured in daily. Her face was everywhere, a symbol of beauty, talent, and power. And then, without warning, she disappeared. No press release, no goodbye tour. She just walked away. For decades, she lived in quiet. No stage, no spotlight, no interviews. And she never once broke that silence to explain her choice. Her stillness became the loudest message she ever gave. While the world speculated, she simply lived. And with each passing year, her legacy didn't fade, it intensified. Her silence gave her story more power than words ever could. So what's the takeaway here? You don't need to be famous to walk in that kind of strength. You just need to stop announcing every move before you make it. You don't have to tell the world you're starting at the gym. Just go. You don't need to announce that you're working on your mindset. Just work. You don't need a round of applause before you grow. Let people feel your evolution before you ever mention it. If you start reacting differently, more calmly, with more clarity, there's no need to explain. If you prefer peace over noise, solitude over chaos, don't justify it. Your growth isn't a group project. It doesn't need approval. It needs momentum. And if ever you feel the itch to prove yourself, pause. Ask, do I want to be admired or do I want to feel whole? Am I doing this for validation or for me? Because many people stall their own growth by obsessing over how it looks. But real change, it doesn't need a stage. It needs commitment. So work quietly, build silently, talk less, do more, share less, become more. And if someone ever asks why you've gone quiet, just smile. Let your transformation answer for you. When your life is no longer defined by the promises you make out loud, but by the quiet choices you follow through on, something powerful happens, the noise fades, and your actions begin to speak volumes. Because when words fade, it's what you do that leaves the real imprint. Once you stop constantly narrating your intentions and simply begin living them, the world listens more closely even when you say nothing at all. And yet, there's another layer even deeper than your outer silence. The story you tell yourself when no one is listening. That quiet narrative playing in the background of your mind is shaping you far more than any conversation you have out loud. It starts the moment you wake up, follows you through your successes and failures, and whispers in your ear during every tough decision. What you repeat internally becomes what you believe. And the danger? Eventually, it becomes what you live. It's not the occasional negative thought that sabotages you, it's the habitual story you keep telling yourself. That automatic reaction when things don't go your way, this always happens to me, or I'm not good enough, or I never get it right. No one implanted those lines into your brain. You did. You rehearsed them without realizing it. And each time you do, you're reinforcing a version of yourself that's keeping you stuck. Modern psychology confirms this. That internal self-talk, your private dialogue, either be your most loyal ally or your cruelest critic. Dr. Kristen Neff, a pioneer in self-compassion research, found that the way you speak to yourself in moments of failure has a direct impact on your mental strength, your emotional clarity, and your ability to bounce back. But here's the thing, it's not about shouting affirmations into a mirror. It's about breaking the reflex to attack yourself every time things don't go perfectly. Ask yourself honestly, when you screw up, how do you respond internally? Do you speak with patience or punishment? Do you offer support or shame? Do you stay by your side or emotionally abandon yourself? Because sometimes the strongest thing you can do is say nothing at all, not to the world, but to your own mind. Choose silence when that inner critic starts to scream. Interrupt the reflex. Not every thought deserves a voice. Not every belief needs a spotlight. If what you're about to say to yourself will wound you, pause. Don't feed it. Set a boundary in your mind. That too is self-care. And in that moment of quiet, ask yourself, where did that thought come from? Why did it surface now? Is it even truer, just familiar? Picture your mind as a private journal you're writing in every single day. Every sentence becomes part of your narrative. I'm not good at this. This is too much. I'm not enough. The more you write those lines, the more you read them. And the more you read them, the more they become your story. But what if you change the script? What if you simply stopped writing that old narrative and started something new? What kind of person would emerge from that shift? The Stoics didn't speak often, but when they did, it carried weight. Epictetus once said, "It's not things that disturb people, but the judgments they make about them." And that includes the judgments we make about ourselves. So start there. Rewrite the judgment, reshape the thought, and you might just rewrite your entire life. So if you've been silently rewriting the inner story you tell yourself, now comes the next layer, realizing just how deeply those quiet judgments shape your entire reality. Marcus Aurelius once said that the happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts. And that wasn't just a pretty lineage, it was a blueprint. Your inner world isn't some passive background. It's the control room. It's where the decisions are made, the beliefs are built, and the limits are either broken or reinforced. When you begin to truly question those quiet phrases that hold you back, and when you start speaking to yourself with the same respect and care you'd give to someone you love, something within you begins to shift. Not in some flashy, overnight transformation, but in the subtle, steady power of awareness. It's not magic, it's self-respect. And it takes practice. You begin by listening to the automatic lines, you keep replaying the ones that slip in without permission. I can't do this. This always happens to me. I'm not enough. Instead of letting those lines drift by unchallenged, you interrupt them. You revise them. You upgrade them. And no, you don't have to shout them out or write them on your bathroom mirror. Just you, quietly, with yourself redirecting the tracks. Like a train that doesn't make noise when it changes course, but suddenly it's heading to a completely different place. I can't handle this becomes, I'm still learning. I always fail turns into, I get better each time. And even if those rewrites feel small, they build something enormous over time. That's what it means to do it like a Stoic. No theatrics, no noise, just intentional, steady transformation. And when someone eventually notices and says, "You don't seem to complain as much these days," or "You look more grounded lately," You don't have to give a speech. Just smile. That smile says it all. You're evolving. And the truth is, what you keep repeating to yourself on the inside, that becomes your energy on the outside. If you change your internal story, you change the person you're becoming. Which brings us to the next point. The power of your words. Not just your thoughts, but the actual words you allow to pass your lips. There's an old story about a group of frogs hopping through the forest when two of them fall into a deep pit. The other frogs gather around, peer over the edge, and shout down, "Don't even try, it's too deep, you'll never make it." Hearing this, one frog gives up, exhausted, and dies. But the second frog keeps jumping, again and again, and each time she hears, "You can't," she pushes harder, leaps differently, finds a new angle, until somehow she climbs out. The onlookers are stunned. "How did you do it?" they ask. The frog replies, "I'm deaf. I thought you were encouraging me." That story holds a powerful lesson. Words can either break your spirit or push you to rise. For one frog, those words became a death sentence. For the other, they became fuel. And here's the deeper truth. The most dangerous or uplifting words aren't always from others, they're the ones you say to yourself. Epictetus made it plain. First learn the meaning of what you say, then speak. Don't let your words be noise. Let them be navigation. Every time you speak, you draw a map. The only question is, are you charting a course that lifts you higher or one that pulls you down? The Stoics knew the answer lies in precision. Speak with purpose. Speak with awareness. Because words shape worlds, especially the world within. So after learning to speak with precision and purpose, it's time to take that awareness deeper, because careless words aren't just noise, they're misfired arrows. The Stoics didn't avoid speaking out of fear of mistakes, but out of deep respect for the power of language. They knew that using words without intention was like shooting arrows with your eyes closed. You might hit yourself, hurt others, or simply waste all your energy. For them, every word was action. There was no separation between what they said and what they did. That kind of consistency, it was their armor. But look at the world today. We're drowning in words. We toss them around without a second thought, often repeating phrases out of habit that have no real meaning, and without realizing it, we fill our environment with emotional toxins. You hear it all the time. This is a disaster. I'm just terrible at this. Everything is broken. We say it casually, maybe even with a laugh, but words aren't harmless. Each one creates a subtle shift of vibration, a direction, an emotion. Say it enough times and it leaves a trace. Imagine your words are drops of water falling on stone. One drop? Nothing. But 1,000 drops every day? It carves through rock. That's exactly what negative language does. It wears away at your confidence, your clarity, your core slowly and silently. And no, this isn't about faking positivity or turning into some grinning robot. It's about not using your voice carelessly. Speak the truth, but speak it with purpose. Ask yourself before opening your mouth, is this sentence bringing clarity or just fueling a complaint? Am I building something with these words, or am I dumping frustration just to relieve pressure? And it doesn't stop with how you speak to yourself. Think of the words you say to others. Sometimes a single sentence from you might be the only thing someone hears during a low moment. And that means you have a choice. Will your words lift them or tear them down? A Stoic chooses carefully, knowing that even one sentence can open a window or slam a door in someone else's mind. So where do you begin? Start by listening. Observe yourself. Tune into what you're saying on autopilot. You'll be surprised how often you repeat things rooted in the past, not in the present. Words shaped by old wounds, outdated fears, stories that no longer match who you are now. Catch them, then reshape them. Second, pay attention to your tone. There's a massive difference between saying, "This is tough for me," and saying, "This is impossible." It's not the same to admit, "I made a mistake," as it is to label yourself a disaster. Small language shifts, yes, but they create massive impact over time. And here's maybe the most powerful shift of all: learn when not to speak. If your words won't help, won't build, won't clarify or encourage, why say them at all? Silence is often wiser than the cleverest argument. It's a sacred space where your real intentions can breathe. Treat your words like sacred tools. When you speak, let it mean something. When you hear yourself, let it lift you. Don't repeat tired phrases just because they're familiar. Clean your verbal house. Speak with purpose. And if there's truly nothing worth saying, say nothing at all, because your words are never small. They're a reflection of who you are. And when you finally start using them with care, everything changes: how you see yourself and how the world sees you. After realizing how deeply your words reflect who you are, the next lesson is even harder to swallow. Not everyone will be able to receive what's in your heart. And trying to make them understand, that can drain the life out of you. It's like speaking into a void where your words bounce back distorted or ignored entirely. You explain, rephrase, soften your tone, make it simpler, shrink yourself just to fit into their mold, and still, the message doesn't land. Why? Because you're trying to pour the ocean into a bottle. The reality is, some people simply lack the openness or the capacity to meet you where you are. And in the process of trying to bridge that gap, you wear yourself thin. You lose energy, time, and sometimes even your sense of self. Imagine throwing yourself over and over against a locked door. You try with kindness, logic, vulnerability, even raw emotion. But the door stays shut, not because you're not trying hard enough, but because the key isn't in your hands, it's in theirs. And if they're not willing to unlock it, your efforts are wasted. That's exactly what it feels like when you try to be understood by someone who doesn't share your values, your worldview, or your experience. It's like planting seeds in hardened earth where nothing can take root. That's when the wise choice becomes clear: not to speak louder, not to explain harder, but to go silent. Epictetus didn't sugarcoat it when he said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." It stings, but it's the truth. He was telling us, if you're truly committed to personal growth, there will be moments when people don't get it. They might misunderstand you, mock you, or dismiss you altogether. And instead of begging them to see your side, your job is to keep moving. Even if they think you're strange, even if they roll their eyes, even if no one claps. Because needing to be understood at every step can become a subtle form of bondage. The Stoics saw this clearly. It's not that speaking your truth is wrong, it's the need to be understood that enslaves you. That constant craving for validation gives others power over your peace. So they chose internal freedom. They made the decision to stop seeking approval from people who couldn't or wouldn't understand. And no, that doesn't mean you become cold or shut off. It means you become wise. You learn to discern when to share, when to stay quiet, when to invest energy, and when to step back. Because silence isn't always repression. Sometimes silence is protection. It's not avoidance, it's a boundary. It's how you preserve your process from interference. Why waste your journey trying to win over minds that aren't open? Here's the golden truth: stop spending your energy trying to be understood and redirect it toward continuing your transformation. While you're explaining, others are building. While you're defending your path, someone else is already walking theirs. And when you overexpose your inner growth too soon, you invite opinions that may contaminate something that's still forming. Like a seed just beginning to root underground, if you dig it up too early just to prove it's growing, you kill it. So the next time you sense someone doesn't get you, resist the urge to force understanding. Don't water dead soil. Let your energy go toward what's actually alive, your quiet growth. Letting go of the need to be understood frees you to protect your peace, and now it's time to protect what's sacred inside you. Not everyone has to grasp your pain, your dreams, or your transformation. So breathe, smile, and keep going. The next time you feel excited about something that truly matters to you, pause before you speak. Ask yourself, am I sharing this because I want connection or because I'm chasing validation? If you're undergoing deep change, don't rush to put it on display for people who won't appreciate it. Sometimes silence isn't just wise, it's necessary. The most powerful thing you can say might be nothing. Because if you constantly have to explain who you are just to be accepted, then you might be in the wrong room to begin with. But don't worry, you're not alone. Others are walking their path too quietly, eyes focused, not asking for permission to feel or grow differently. And you'll find them. Until then, never shrink yourself just to blend in. Never explain your spirit just to be seen. Never dim your light to make others comfortable. What lives inside you is not for everyone, and that's perfectly okay. It's not meant for everyone, it's meant for you. Now, here's another truth: saying something might give you relief, but only doing it will change your life. You've likely had this moment: you're telling a friend about a new project you're excited about, your voice full of fire, your plans bigger than ever. It feels good, right? Like you've already conquered the mountain just by saying it out loud. But here's the trap: you didn't actually do anything, you just talked about it. Your brain, though, gets confused. Multiple studies show that when you share your goals, your brain activates the same reward systems as if you'd already achieved them. That hit of dopamine, it feels like victory. But in reality, you haven't climbed anywhere yet. You haven't earned it. As Derek Sivers explains, when you talk about your goals, your brain thinks you've made progress, and that false sense of accomplishment actually slows you down. It steals your drive. Why keep pushing if you already got the applause? Why fight for something if your mind believes you've already arrived? Picture climbing a mountain, only to stop every few steps, walk back down, and run around the village telling everyone how high you've climbed. Will you ever reach the top like that? Probably not. Because what most of us need isn't more motivation, it's less talk. The Stoics lived by this. They didn't define themselves by grand declarations, but by quiet, consistent actions. Not when the spotlight was on, but especially when no one was watching. For them, virtue wasn't a slogan. It wasn't a speech. It was a life, embodied. Marcus Aurelius never walked around proclaiming, "I'm going to be a great emperor." He simply lived as one. He made mistakes. He faced conflict. He struggled. But he didn't talk about acting. He acted. So ask yourself, are you chasing progress or chasing praise? Because if you have to explain your dreams too much before you've even begun living them, maybe it's time to stop speaking and start doing. If your words have been louder than your actions, it's time to reverse the pattern, because what truly changes your life is what you do, not what you say. And here's the uncomfortable truth most people avoid. The more you talk about what you're going to do, the less likely you are to actually do it. Not because talking is inherently wrong, but because too often it becomes a form of escapee moment of relief, a round of applause before the show has even begun. But real drive doesn't come from being cheered on before the effort. It comes from commitment, the kind you make in silence, with no witnesses. There's a hidden strength in doing without telling. When you still show up, still practice, still follow through, even when no one's watching, you're building something no one can take from you. That kind of inner consistency doesn't need approval. It doesn't depend on whether anyone claps. It's grounded. It's unshakable. And there's a bonus that few people talk about: silent action conserves your energy. You don't waste time convincing anyone, defending your process, or explaining yourself. You simply move. While others debate, you execute. While others post, you practice. Want real advice? The next time you have a dream or a plan, don't speak it into the wind. Write it down. Start it. Let it take root. And only when it's in motion, only when it's already becoming something real, then, if you want, share it. But don't go shouting your vision while it's still just a fragile seed. Because if you expose your ideas too early, the wind of doubt, yours or someone else's, might blow them away before they've had a chance to grow. That's not to say talking is the enemy. Talking can heal, bring clarity, even spark connection. But if you're talking more than you're doing, you're building a version of yourself in the air, something imagined but not earned. And that gap between who you say you are and who you actually are, that gap can hurt. So what can you do? Don't give inspiring speeches when you haven't even stepped onto the field. Don't flood your feed with motivational quotes when you haven't taken that first real action. Don't tell the world who you're becoming. Become it. Do more. Say less. Put your time and energy into building, not decorating the idea. Because talking about it may bring you peace for a moment, but doing it, that transforms you. Your life won't shift just because you've announced it to the world. It shifts when you act, when you persist, when you choose to quietly prove what others only shout. And that brings us to something the Stoics said that still echoes today. Ever wondered why we have two ears and only one mouth? Epictetus had a way of wrapping profound wisdom in the simplest words. He said nature gave us two ears and one mouth to teach us this: we should listen more and speak less. At first, it may sound like a sweet phrase your grandmother might have told you, but dig deeper, it's a strategy, a mindset, a blueprint for power. Because true listening reveals what others overlook. It helps you spot what others miss, respond with wisdom, and choose your next move with intention. Think about it now. Many people do you know who truly listen? You're opening your heart, sharing something meaningful, and they cut in with, "Yeah, something worse happened to me." Last time, we explored how true power comes from listening more than speaking. Now let's look at why most people get that so wrong. Have you ever tried to open up to someone only to have them hijack the conversation with their own story? You barely get your words out before they jump in with, "That's nothing. One time and suddenly your moment becomes a warm-up act for their monologue. It's draining, isn't it? You came seeking connection, maybe even understanding, but instead you became background noise to their ego. The real sting isn't just that they weren't listening. It's that deep down you knew they weren't learning anything from what you shared. They missed the subtleties. They didn't make room for your perspective. They didn't hear what you were actually saying because, to them, it was always about me, me, me. And you walk away from that interaction feeling lonelier than before. Now ask yourself, would a Stoic do that? Epictetus, who endured slavery before becoming a philosopher, knew the power of being forced to listen, and he transformed that hardship into a strength. He taught his students to resist the impulse to speak just to protect their ego. Words weren't a shield, they were tools, and tools should be used with precision. He was known to sit in silence for long periods, even when he disagreed with what was being said, because he understood that silence allows you to see more. It gives you leverage. It sharpens your awareness. Marcus Aurelius, an emperor who had every right to dominate every conversation, chose the opposite. His journals are filled not with proclamations, but with questions, doubts, quiet reflections. His wisdom wasn't born from ego, it was born from listening. He listened to philosophers, generals, even slaves, and he didn't listen to respond, he listened to understand. So, let me ask you, how many moments have you missed because you spoke too soon? How many insights slipped past you because you rushed to interrupt? Listening isn't passive. It's a decision. It takes humility to admit you don't have all the answers. It takes strength to sit back and let someone else show you a truth you didn't know you needed. Imagine this, you're in a room with 20 people. One person in that room has the answer that could change everything for you, but you're so busy talking, trying to sound smart or make your point, that you never give them the space to speak. What did you just lose? Now imagine the opposite. You're calm, quiet, asking thoughtful questions, giving people your full attention. Suddenly, you're picking up on subtle cues. You notice what others miss. You see deeper. You make smarter decisions. Listening is like training in silence. You're not performing, but you're growing. And when your moment to speak finally comes, your words carry real weight because they come from insight, not impulse. And yes, sometimes silence is also strategy. Not everything deserves your energy. Not every insult requires a defense. Some people want a reaction, and giving it to them means giving them power. Choosing silence isn't weakness. It's mastery. It's knowing when to act and when to preserve your peace. So what can you do starting today? In your next conversation, listen just a bit more than you speak. Don't rush, don't interrupt, pause. Ask questions. Be curious instead of judgmental. And more importantly, notice who really listens to you. They are rare and they are gold. Become that kind of person. Because in the end, people won't remember every word you said, but they will remember how you made them feel. So before you speak just to fill the silence, remember you were given 2 ears and only 1 mouth. That's not an accident, it's a guide. And so, as you start to listen more than you speak, you begin to notice something powerful. Those who truly hear the world don't need to raise their voice to make an impact. But what happens when you shift from listening inward to constantly broadcasting outward? That's where things begin to unravel. Let's talk about applause and why craving it might be the very thing that's holding you back. Here's a harsh truth. If you rely on applause to measure your progress, you won't get far. The real danger of always sharing what you're doing is that, over time, you might start mistaking applause for actual growth. And once that happens, you've lost the compass. If you're only consistent when others are watching, you're not developing discipline, you're developing dependence. Your routine becomes a performance. Your journey becomes a show. And worst of all, You lose the ability to hear your own voice because it's drowned out by the noise of the crowd. In today's world, everything is public. Every small effort is turned into a post. Every milestone becomes content. There are people who quite literally can't make a move unless someone is watching, unless there's an audience ready to validate it with likes and emojis. But the strongest part of you, the part that truly matters, is the part that works when no one sees it. It's what you do in silence, when no one is clapping, when no one is watching. That's where your real power lives. Let me share something personal. Years ago, I spent almost 3 months preparing for a major change in my life. I studied, I trained, I mapped out everything. I was ready. And just before I took the first real step, I opened up to my friends. I told them, this is it. Their reaction, applause, encouragement, celebration, it felt amazing. That wave of approval gave me such a high, such a sense of momentum. But then, I didn't start. That burst of dopamine became my reward. My brain, satisfied with the praise, assumed I had already achieved something. I hadn't. And it took me another 3 months just to regain that same drive. The issue wasn't the sharing. It was why I was sharing. I had shared for validation, not for clarity. The Stoics warned about this. They didn't live for applause. They lived for alignment actions rooted in values, not reactions from the crowd. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, wrote night after night about his flaws, his failures, his desire to improve. He didn't write for likes or for praise. He wrote to grow. He once said, true glory consists in doing what deserves to be written and writing what deserves to be read. But more importantly, doing it even if no one is watching. Because when you act with purpose and don't share it, you plant it deeper within yourself. You protect it from being diluted by outside opinions. And that, while more difficult, is far more powerful. You see, when you broadcast everything, you become fragile. Every comment has the power to sway you. Every opinion can shake your direction. Every cheer makes you believe you've arrived, even when you've barely begun. That's why learning to move in silence is so essential. Build without an audience. Grow without witnesses. It might sting at first, it's human to want to share. But in time, you'll realize that what is sacred grows stronger and quiet. And once you no longer need applause to keep going, you become unstoppable. When you no longer need recognition to move forward, that's when true inner strength begins to grow. But let's be honest, sometimes it still feels unfair not to be seen or acknowledged for the progress you've made. Yet ironically, it's in those quiet, unseen moments that your character is forged and your discipline solidified. So how do you handle those achievements that no one notices? You celebrate them, but quietly. You give yourself a nod, a moment of appreciation, without turning it into a hunt for validation. If you choose to share it later, that's fine, but only when it no longer needs applause to feel real. Let the energy stay on the achievement itself, not on who reacts to it. And when you come up with a new goal or vision, don't announce it with fanfare. Begin in silence. Start testing, adjusting, exploring. Then, when your plans have roots, when the vision has become reality, you can speak about it if you wish, but not before. There's power in restraint. Whenever you feel pulled to do something just to impress others, stop and ask yourself, is this truly for me, or is it for them? Because here's the truth. Many of the deepest, most transformational shifts in your life will unfold far away from any spotlight, far removed from any social feed or external witness. And that's perfectly okay. You weren't born to be clapped, for you're here to evolve, to grow into the strongest, wisest, most grounded version of yourself, even if no one ever sees it happen. So drop the noise, let go of ego, release that relentless desire to broadcast every step. Focus instead on what remains when the phone is off, when the stage is empty, and the only person left in the room is you. Because if you can keep going even then, you're no longer chasing motivation, you've become it. And keep your eyes open, because what's coming next is not just philosophy anymore, it's transformation at its core. These final insights are built to shift something in you from the inside out. So let's dive deeper. Here's one of the hardest truths to swallow. Not everyone deserves your trust. Just because someone smiles at you doesn't mean their intentions are pure. Just because someone seems close doesn't mean they've earned access to your inner world. Trust is a gifted, incredible gift, but it's also fragile. Once broken, it's nearly impossible to put back together the same way. You see, when you trust someone, you're opening a door into a very sacred space. But if the person walking through that door doesn't know how to honor it, they may do more damage than good. And I know you probably lead with truth. You offer others your whole heart, assuming that if you show up with sincerity, they'll do the same. But life doesn't always play fair. Not everyone has the depth to receive your thoughts, to hold your emotions, to understand the complexity of your soul. That's why you must be cautious. You don't owe every person access to your mind or your heart. Nature teaches us this. Think about bamboo. It spends 5 years growing unseen beneath the soil, anchoring itself in deep, invisible roots before it ever reaches upward. That's what trust should be: quiet, deliberate, built slowly over time. Because if you give it to the first person who passes by, you risk having them stomp all over it before it even has the chance to rise. And here's something you've likely experienced. You open up to someone who seems kind, thoughtful. You share a vulnerable moment, hoping to connect. They nod, they listen, or so it seems. But as soon as you finish, they jump in with, "That's nothing. I've been through worse." And just like that, your pain becomes a stepping stone for their ego. It's no longer a moment of connection, it's a spotlight they steal for themselves. Sound familiar? So ask yourself, why did you share? Was it trust? Or was it hope disguised as trust? Maybe what you shared wasn't about trust at all. Maybe it was just a cry for relief, a way to release the weight you were carrying. And that's where the danger hides. Because sometimes we don't share to connect, we share simply so we don't feel alone. But impulsive trust, given without discernment, can leave scars deeper than silence ever could. The Stoics understood this truth intimately. Epictetus, who lived through chains before he taught wisdom, reminded his students to observe before they revealed. He urged them to let time be the filterto, allow someone's discretion, respect, and inner discipline to surface before handing them something sacred. This wasn't about being cold, it was about preserving peace. Because some truths, no matter how deeply felt, are not meant for everyone. Seneca didn't sugarcoat it either. He said, "It is safer to avoid trusting than to regret having trusted." That's not bitterness. That's emotional intelligence. That's honoring your heart before placing it in someone else's hands. This isn't about shutting the world out or building walls. It's about being intentional. It's about forming bonds that are rooted in something real, not appearances, not charm, not shallow surface talk. It's about choosing to speak less and notice more. Because more often than not, the one who listens the most closely is also the one who understands best whom to trust. So here's a rule worth keeping. Not every storm inside you needs to be spoken aloud. Not every emotion needs an audience. Choosing silence doesn't always mean hiding, it can mean protecting. It can mean preserving the sacredness of your own growth from those who wouldn't know how to hold it. So what should you actually do? First, listen. When you meet someone new, pay attention to how they treat other people's stories. If they gossip freely, mocking or belittling others when you're around, don't be naive one day, it will be your name on their tongue. That's your first warning. Second, test small before you open wide. Share a light piece of truth. Watch what they do with it. Do they hold it gently? Do they keep it? Do they make space for iter? Do they use it for their own agenda? Their reaction tells you everything. Most importantly, pause. Don't share out of impulse. Ask yourself, am I sharing this because I trust this person or because I'm desperate to unload it somewhere? If the answer is the second, do yourself a favor, write it down instead. Breathe. Let the wave pass. Not everything needs to be said. Trust wisely. Trust like the bamboo, silently, inwardly, letting roots go deep beneath the surface. And when the time is right, only then let it grow outward with strength. Because not everyone deserves your trust, but you, yes, you deserve to be surrounded by those who honor it like something rare. And now, we're about to move into the part that's not just advice anymore. What comes next is more than words, it's a challenge. The final lessons are the ones that don't just guide your thoughts, they shake you from the inside out. Get ready, because what's coming isn't for the crowd, it's for the few. Number 11, some battles are only won in silence. You heard that right. Not everything should be shared. There are pivotal moments in life when the wisest thing you can do is to stay quiet. And it's not silence from fear. It's not because you're hiding. It's because you respect your path too much to let others trample on it. Some decisions, if revealed too soon, lose their power. Some transformations need protection, not explanation. Some battles are sacred, and they are only won when no one else is watching. And do you know why? Because when you interrupt a process to explain it, you strip it of its strength. Some things grow stronger when left in the dark, undisturbed. Because when you share too early, you risk giving others the power to question what you're still trying to solidify. That's when the fragile frame of your decision begins to wobble. Imagine this, you're walking away from a place you've outgrown. Maybe it's a draining relationship, a job that no longer fits, or even an outdated version of yourself. Inside, you feel clarity. You know it's time. You take the first step forward. But then, you announce it. You tell the world. And almost instantly, the responses start pouring in. Are you sure? That sounds risky. I wouldn't do it like that. And suddenly, what once felt like certainty begins to dissolve into confusion. That inner clarity gets drowned out by external noise. Your momentum falters. Doubt creeps in. Why? Because when others speak their fears into your vision, your inner voice can become blurry. Nature understands this principle in a way we often forget. Look at the eagle, it doesn't call a press conference before it soars. It builds high above the world, away from distraction. It doesn't ask for attention. It simply rises, silently, powerfully. No announcements. Just flight. That's how we need to move, sometimes quietly, intentionally, protecting what's still unfolding within. And if you've ever questioned this, Let me share something personal. There was a time in my life when a deep change began stirring inside me. I didn't have all the answers, but something within me knew it was time. It wasn't a fleeting mood. It was a quiet certainty, like a flame you can't ignore. Have you ever felt that kind of knowing? I had made up my mind. My path was clear. But instead of acting, I shared it. I told others, partly from excitement, partly seeking support, and that's when it shifted. The responses came fear, doubt, second guessing. What if it doesn't work? What if you regret it? Isn't that a bit too much? And just like that, I caught their fear like a virus. Has that ever happened to you? You were sure of your path until you heard too many voices, and suddenly you didn't know if it was your choice or someone else's opinion steering you. That moment taught me something profound. Some battles must be fought in silence. Some decisions aren't meant to be explained, they're meant to be lived. Not every emotion requires an audience. Not every decision needs to be debated. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is protect your progress from noise. The Stoics lived by this. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor of Rome, didn't write to persuade. He wrote to stay aligned, to ground himself. In the privacy of his own reflections, he tracked his flaws, his growth, his efforts to become better, not to impress, but to evolve. One of his most piercing reminders: the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. In other words, you don't need to prove your worth. You just need to stay true to it. Epictetus, on the other hand, often told his students to act first and only speak if it became necessary. Because when you flip that order, when speaking comes before action, ego takes the wheel. So what can you take from all this? First, examine the reasons behind your words. Are you sharing because of habit, insecurity, impulse? Or would it serve you better to hold that intention in silence a bit longer? Second, protect your progress. Not everything you're building is ready to be weighed down by the opinions of others. Some things grow deeper and stronger when you leave them undisturbed. And third, make silence your ally. This doesn't mean isolation. It means discernment. It means choosing carefully who gets to witness your process. Sometimes knowing for yourself is more than enough. Because yes, some of your greatest battles won't need an audience. They will be won privately in your mind, in your soul, and in your steady, quiet steps forward. And when you can hold your silence long enough for your actions to take root, the day will come when you won't need to explain a thing. Who you've become will speak louder than any words ever could. But before that moment, there's something else we all wrestle with: the overwhelming noise of the world. It's not just the pings from your phone, the constant opinions flooding your feed, or the interruptions that break your rhythm. It's also the inner noise, the endless cycle of doubts, comparisons, and the pressure to validate every decision you make. Have you ever felt exhausted by this constant need to explain yourself? To clarify every step just so it feels real? Living like that is like turning up the volume of life to maximum, hoping the sound alone will push you forward. But here's the problem: noise might resemble action, yet most of the time, it's just distraction. And eventually, your spirit runs dry. Because talking, posting, explaining those things consume energy, real energy. And sometimes the most courageous, healthy thing you can do isn't to yell louder, it's to simply lower the noise. Think about a time when you tried to change something meaningful in your life. Maybe you were shifting your mindset, healing a relationship, or rebuilding your health. But instead of quietly focusing, you ended up telling everyone about it. Every small win needed validation. Every little effort needed applause. as if the process didn't count unless it was witnessed. But the truth is change doesn't crave attention. It craves direction. Epictetus said it with piercing clarity. Don't explain your philosophy, live it. And if you take this to heart, really live by it, it will flip your life. Because the more you explain, the more you hesitate. The more you talk, the less you act. And soon enough, the noise becomes the main character, while you, your real self, takes a back seat, just watching your own transformation from the sidelines. There's a story that captures this truth perfectly. A monk lived in solitude at the peak of a mountain. Every day, he would descend into the village in silence to fetch water. He never spoke of his knowledge or process. One day, a curious young man asked him, "Why don't you share what you know?" And the monk replied, "If I have to speak for it to be known, then I don't understand it well enough yet." Then he turned and continued on his quiet path. That story hits deep, doesn't it? Because sometimes the urge to make noise comes from insecurity. When you're truly grounded, you don't feel the need to announce. When you're at peace, you don't have to explain. When you're focused, you don't need to share every detail. So what can you do about it? First, identify your noise. What are you saying just to feel seen or soothed? What are you sharing because you're uncertain, not because it's necessary? Learn to separate true communication from emotional noise. Second, turn the volume down. Silence the voices that offer opinions without wisdom. Walk away from conversations that pull you further from who you want to become. Not everything deserves a reply. Not every opinion needs correcting. Sometimes the energy you waste talking is the same energy you need to move forward. And third, learn to enjoy your process privately. Not to hide it, but to protect it. Make silence your sanctuary. Let it be the sacred space where your growth matures without depending on comments, likes, or approval. Yes, it might feel uncomfortable at first. You've been trained to narrate your life like a live stream, but give it time, stay with it, and soon you'll feel something new: focus and peace. After all that noise fades and you finally learn to live with less of it, something shifts. You begin to sense that the things that truly matter don't scream for attention. They move with quiet purpose. They don't need volume. They need clarity and direction. And now we've arrived the final point, the last lesson, the one that ties everything together and gives meaning to the journey you've just walked through. Are you ready for it? Here it is. If you're truly doing it for yourself, then you don't need to say it out loud. Reflect for a moment on the biggest changes you've ever made. The real, deep ones. Did you announce them in advance? Or did you just do them silently, intentionally, without waiting for anyone's reaction? Chances are, the most life-defining shifts happened in that quiet space where you simply followed through. No speeches, no updates, no need for validation. You acted and everything changed. Because when something is born from deep inside you, it doesn't crave approval, it simply asks to be lived. There's a subtle but powerful difference between expressing your journey and broadcasting it just to be seen or validated. And if you don't recognize that difference, you risk losing the very strength you were trying to build. I remember something that hit me deeply. Someone close to me asked, "Why aren't you sharing much these days? Why so quiet?" And I answered from a place of honesty, because this time, I want the change to be mine, just mine. And that felt liberating. There was no need to convince anyone, no pressure to explain myself, just the quiet strength of keeping a promise I had made to myself. That's when I truly understood when you're doing it for you, There's no need to say a thing. You feel it, you carry it, you live it. And that's more than enough. Seneca once wrote, "The reward for a good action is having done it." Not talking about it, not collecting praise, just knowing deep inside that you followed through, that you took the step. Think about that. If your transformation relies on someone else noticing or clapping for it, is it really yours? Or are you leasing it out to other people's opinions? When growth is real, it doesn't demand attention. You don't need to hang it up like a trophy. You don't need to repeat it over and over. It's already imprinted in who you are. And that, right there, is true freedom. So, what now? First, make your changes quietly, not to hide, but to commit. Let your actions reflect who you're becoming, not who you want to impress. Second, let time do the talking. What you're building today will reveal itself tomorrow. Words can deceive, actions won't. And third, always remember you are not here to impress the world. You're here to grow. If someone sees your progress, wonderful. If they don't, it doesn't matter. Because if you're doing it for yourself, truly for yourself, then it's already enough. This is the closing thought, the final piece of the puzzle. And maybe, just maybe, it's the most important one of all. You don't have to announce your growth. You don't need to defend your path. You just need to live it fully, honestly, and quietly. Because when you really do it for you, it shows without a single word. It shapes you. It radiates through everything you touch. And my friend, if anything in this message struck a chord with your soul, don't let it end here. Hit that subscribe button, become part of our channel, and let's keep evolving together. And if you feel like it, share your own quiet transformation in the comments below. You remember what we said? When your transformation is real, you don't need to shout, it reveals itself in how you move, how you speak, how you live. Now, it's your moment to own that change. So let's make it real. Drop a comment below and tell us what you're ready to start building in silence from today onward. Or if words feel too big right now, just write, "I am a Stoic." From today on, I stop talking about it and start living it. That alone will let us know who the true Stoic warriors are, the ones who stayed until the very end, the ones who don't just watch but act. And before you go, don't forget to hit subscribe, tap the notification bell, and give this video a like so you don't miss what's coming next. And hey, if this message resonated with you, check out our playlist, Stoic Wisdom, Mastering Emotions and Inner Strength. It's packed with ideas, stories, and practical tools to help you navigate life with more clarity, purpose, and calm. Just click the link and let's keep walking this path together. Until next time, take care and never stop embracing your inner Stoic.